Welcome back to another episode of On Spot Sports. I'm Jack, and today's episode we are joined by a very special guest, one of my good buddies and one of my goalie partners from this past season, Spencer Kozlowski. Spencer most recently played with the Watertown Wolves in the Federal Prospects Hockey League, while also spending time with the Elmira River Sharks and the Blue Ridge Bobcats this past season before heading to Watertown. And even before that, he was with the Delaware Thunder after he finished his grad year at New England College the year before, and he spent 5 years playing NCAA Division III college hockey with New England College. Even before that, he played in the Western States Hockey League, the PIJHL, and the KIJHL before going to college. So I'm really excited to have Spencer on the show. He's one of my good buddies. So welcome to the show, Spencer Kozlowski.
Appreciate it, Jacko. You just basically just gave a rundown of like the past 10, 11 years of my playing career. So way to condense that into like 30 seconds here.
Hey, we'll go right through it throughout this entire episode, but I'm excited to get you on. Like I know we've been talking about this since the season, since we're in season, so it's good to sit down. Would rather do it in person, but we'll manage with what we got.
Yeah, make do with what we got. So yeah, here we are finally. You finally got to the bottom of your priority list. So
But you're always on my priority list.
thanks, Jacko.
Yeah, but I want to start things off with just talking about your let's go from the beginning. So we'll start. You're from Vancouver, BC. It's like what was hockey like growing up for you in Vancouver?
Pretty standard, honestly. I mean, in terms of what are you talking about? What was it like?
Like just for, like
Because
when did you start playing? Like why do
okay,
we
so
always ask
so
we
we're going
always
way, way,
go
way,
like
way, way
yeah,
back.
way back.
Way back. Okay, so that starts when I was 9 years old. And I really just wanted to play hockey. And originally I wanted to be a player.
Oh,
And
oh I know that.
yeah, this was way back when you had to actually physically fill out the form, right? Not everything
Yeah.
was online. So we filled out the form. I filled it out as a player because obviously most kids want to score goals, right? And I was no different. And then I went to school. My mom went to the office to drop off the papers and yada yada yada. I come back, and then that's when she broke the news to me that I was actually going to be a goalie because my older brother was a goalie. So she thought that it would be good so I could just use his hand-me-downs. And obviously, I'm 9 years old. I'm not really in, can't really make those kind of decisions, and I just want to play hockey at the time. So that's kind of just a hand I was dealt. Kind of forced into being a goalie, but what can you do? And then the rest is history from there.
Yeah, I remember whenever we'd go over to power play and we'd just rip pucks as players, and you're like, why didn't I do this when I first was able to play hockey? Like I'd much rather do that than be a goalie.
Yeah, a lot less stress too.
Oh yeah, that's for sure. But like, what were some of like you? I know you weren't big on being goalie when you were younger, but like, what were some of those memories that like really like it felt all right to be a goalie?
Yeah, no, it was definitely so right out of the gate. I had like hardly ever skated before that, honestly. And naturally you see kids, they're player for the very beginning, like when they're 4 or 5 years old, and then they transition into being a goalie, right? Once they kind of get like that foundational skating down. So I hopped right into it. And obviously my family or nobody really knew if I was gonna be good or not, fair enough. So I ended up playing house that year and I excelled pretty quick, especially for a kid that never played before. And I know you probably hear it from a lot of guys when they say like, "Oh, I was really good when I was younger." But yeah, I was not to pump my own tires, but it really took off from there, honestly, when I was younger, at least. Like there was like newspaper articles about me within like 2 or 3 years of playing, and it looked like I was destined for probably a probably a different league than the federal, but that's life. You don't always get exactly what you want. You just gotta make the best of it. But yeah, no, it started out pretty hot, and then towards the time where I hit bantams like 13, 14, 15, I just didn't really develop accordingly, honestly. And it kind of sucked like a lot of other goalies here. And this is no excuse too. A lot of other goalies were getting taller and I stayed really short. Like at 14, I was like 5'2", right? Not really ideal
Yeah.
for a goalie. Can really
No.
your head's barely over the crossbar. Um, but yeah, so things kind of slowed down. So I'd say from like 9 to like 12, 13, I was up there. And then I hit 13, 14, 15, and that's kind of where things really leveled off and I fell behind, unfortunately. Um, but then that's also the time I really started to take it seriously because I realized like, okay, well, like this is what it is now. I got to figure things out right now.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, that's kind of the layout of when I first started playing. Um, and then it was kind of yeah, 15, 16 was a bit of a roller coaster. So I ended up getting cut to house in my first year midget. And that was a completely foreign situation that I've ever been subject to because I was always playing AAA up until then.
Yeah.
And then they cut me to house for whatever reason, I didn't agree with it. I didn't let in a single goal in exhibitions, but there are some returning kids there. So just typical minor hockey stuff, but it really sucks. So then I didn't play hockey for like a month and a half because they cut me to house and I was literally just like, fuck that. Can I swear on this or no?
Yeah. Yes.
So I was just like, fuck that. Like, I'm not doing that. Like, that's just going to make me worse. Right. So I didn't play hockey for like a month and a half and I just hit the gym and skated whenever I could. It was a pretty depressing time in my life too, honestly. Because, I didn't really have much of a structure or schedule. Right. So it was definitely mentally pretty tough too. And then a month and a half went by and then one of the goalies on like the AAA teams, like he ended up quitting. So that opened up a spot on the A2 team. Um, Still the hockey was pretty bad. I thought that I should have been on the AAA team, but that's not necessarily how things always work. And then I actually ended up getting AP'd with the Greater Vancouver Canadians, which is like it's better than AAA, right? It's basically just like a combination of like 4 or 5 organizations just condensed into one, right? It's almost like a super team, you could say. So I ended up getting AP'd by them. So I was call up, but then I got cut to house at my association. So it's like something to really add up there.
Yeah.
And then going into that would be my second year midget. I don't know for those that are listening how familiar they are with like the age groups and everything, but everything's been categorized so differently. But second year midget, so I was 16. First year eligible for juniors. Um, I was the last cut again for major midget, and that one stung. That's another situation where I really felt that I deserved at least the second spot there, but there was probably some politics going on there too. Nothing new again. But so then that happened. And I went back to my minor hockey association, played AAA. And then one of my really good trainers, he was the coach of the Grand Forks Border Bruins in the KI, as you mentioned earlier. And then spot opened up there. I think one of their goalies got hurt, and it was like a semi-long-term injury, like a month's worth. And it was the beginning of December. And he said, "Hey, you want to come up here for like a month and play junior B?" And obviously, as a 16-year-old, when you're playing minor hockey, that your eyes kind of light up when you get that kind of opportunity. So
Walk yeah.
I took it, went up there for an entire month. I can't. And in hindsight, I can't believe I actually did it just because of all the homework and schooling that I missed. Because it's like 10 hours away, right? It's in the middle
Yeah.
of nowhere. And just being able to swing that was pretty awesome. So I got up there for a month, ended up playing in 4 games actually, because one of the goalies when I was there, he got called up to the BC. So then I had to slot in for him. And then my first ever taste of junior ice time, it was against I think the Beaver Valley Nighthawks or something like that. And they were a wagon of a team. And we were getting smacked like 6 or 7-1 in the third period. It was like halfway through. And then obviously coach gives the other goalie a yank. I go in and I'm literally shaking. Like my entire body, my legs, my arms, everything is shaking. Like I'm so nervous. I can't even move properly. Like it was almost like a fight or flight response where
Yeah.
it was just I was frozen. And I ended up letting in the first shot on like a 1T from like the top of the circles that just went right through me. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is gonna be a tough one. But I got another shot and I made that save, so I went 1 for 2 that night. And
There you
then
go. 500.
yeah, 500, not a big deal. Um, and then I ended up getting a start probably about a week later against the Kimberly Dynamiters against who was it, Tyson Brower or Troy Brower, who did
Troy Brower, I
Ridge?
think. Or Tyson.
Tyson, I think Tyson Brower. Yeah, I ended up playing
Yeah.
against him actually my first ever junior start. Who knows if he remembers me, but I ended up playing really good that game actually. I remember I let in 5 on 51 in my first start. We ended up losing 5-4. Um, and one of the goals that was scored against me, they dump the puck and I go behind the net, stop it. D-man gets it. He tries to fire a pass like right up the middle. hits the back of my skate and goes in.
Oh.
So I was like, "Are you kidding me?" But yeah, no, that would have been a really nice way to start my junior career. But all in all, not too bad. Um, and then I ended up going to the Port Moody Panthers in the PIJHL. I think it's now known as the PJHL though. Who knows with all the changes they've been doing. But yeah, so my coach and trainer who was coaching the Grand Forks Border Bruins, he got the job at Port Moody. So I naturally, I guess, there's a little favoritism there in my favor finally, so I got a spot there.
Yeah.
Um, but I will say, objectively speaking, I did earn it. I ended up playing like 37 out of 44 games. So that was a huge year for me developmentally, right? Just getting a lot of games. And we weren't very good, getting like 40, 45 shots a game and just managing that mentally and also like going to school because Port Moody's like it's like in 45 minutes or an hour away from my house, right?
Yeah.
And at the time I couldn't drive. So I'd have to bus there and practice that like 1 o'clock, right? Just like kind of like standard junior to practice time. So I'd go to school from like 8:30 to like 11:30, leave school, get on a bus for an hour and a half, go to practice, get out 3:30-ish, get some food, whatever, bus all the way back, getting back at like 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock or whatever, waking up, repeat, do everything all over again, right?
Yeah.
So that was a good year knowing how to kind of like balance things and time management, right? And also playing pretty much almost every single game too. As a 17-year-old, facing that volume of shots too wasn't easy, but I couldn't have asked for any more.
Yeah, and like that's huge that you got to experience that your first like official year of juniors, first full junior season, and you played 37, 44 games. Like we always talk about, especially this past year with like being mentally ready, just like having like good mindset and like really like focusing on like the development part aspect of the
Right.
game. Like you said, like that was huge for that first year. So like obviously you have that transition going from what you played the year before with 4 games and also like going to like house and then AAA and then stuff like that. And like everything's like spiraling, but then you're able to get that opportunity. So like
Yeah.
what's it like just getting that opportunity and like taking advantage of that opportunity when it comes to you?
Oh, it's awesome. It's so satisfying. I mean, especially like when you're so in the moment too when it's happening, you don't really
Yeah.
think of like the past and things that have happened before, but if you stop once in a while and really think like, holy smokes, I was cut to house like less than 2 years ago. And now I have this opportunity right in front of me. Like I got to make the best of it, right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, it's awesome. It's been a roller coaster, but right, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey, is what they say. So it was a lot of fun. It was awesome. Um, and then going into my 18-year-old season, coming off a pretty strong overall in all, it was a pretty strong year, all things considered. Obviously, I had my fair share of good games, bad games, mediocre games, right?
Yeah.
Pretty standard stuff, especially as a young kid. And then I got invited to camp in Nipawin in the SJ. So I went to camp. Um, and honestly speaking, I will say it could have gone either way. Um, I think I put too much pressure on myself because right going into my 18-year-old season, in my mind at the time, I was thinking, I got to make this team and I need to play tier two now, right?
Yeah.
If I want to have a chance of getting a Division I scholarship. So I think that's something I kind of did like early on in my playing career, like in juniors, is I'd always thinking about the external factors that I didn't necessarily have that much control over, or it was basically just me focusing on the wrong thing, right? Because at the end of the day, if you stop the puck, everything's going to take care of itself.
Yeah.
There's no need to think about what your save percentage is, what your numbers are going to be, which scouts where, what they think of you, and all this, that, and the third. Um, so I played preseason with them. I did okay. Didn't do anything crazy. Didn't do anything horrid, but I ended up getting cut 2 days before the home opener. So that one really stung too because I really did not want to go back home and play junior B for another year.
Yeah.
Um, so that happened. Then I stuck around there for a little bit because I was still calling teams and seeing if they would give me a chance, right? Because like I was there. Once you go back home, you're back home, right?
Yeah.
So it's a lot harder to get out there. But couple a couple weeks passed, and I ended up just going back home. Played went to a few played a few games for Port Moody, team that I played for the year previous. Didn't go well because I think my mind was still wrapped, and I was still feeling sorry for myself for not making that team in Saskatchewan. Um, anyways, I ended up getting dished right after that. Uh, not to anyone's surprise, honestly, probably. Because they had a kid that was there and he was playing pretty well. So yeah, they dished me. I went over and played for a team called the Grandview Steelers, and they already had a 20-year-old starter. So I didn't get much playing time that year at all. And going from such a high volume of starts and games the year before to like 10 or 15, that was a tough one. That was a tough one to swallow. Um, just because you think, you feel like since you played so much the year before, you deserve, at least something close to that. But there's obviously no guarantees in the hockey world. So he obviously played the bulk of the games, and then I didn't play very much, but played my best when I could. But it was tough to get into a rhythm, right? Because I know there was a span where I didn't play a game for like 3 weeks, and in junior hockey, that's a pretty considerable amount of time. I think it was like 3 weeks, or might have even been a little bit more than that. So, and then it was also really easy to fall into the mindset of like, oh my God, like, making excuses for yourself, or oh my God, I'm going to play and like it's not going to go well, right? And that's just not the right mindset to have. So that's kind of what happened. I played after almost a month and didn't do very well, and it just kind of it's really easy to have a snowball, really. Um, so then after that, I knew that I pretty much had no chance, like going to like the BC, the AJ, the SJ, even the MJ or something like that. So I was trying to explore options in like the OJ and like maybe the SI, if you know what that league is, the
Yeah.
SIJHL. I was exploring options there, but then I was kind of looking at like the track record of where they move players onto, and primarily is like Division 3 / ACHA, right? So I'm just like, all right, well, reality is if I go there, I'll probably end up going Division 3 or ACHA, right?
Yeah.
And then one of my good buddies here, actually, Matt Reyes, shout out Matt Reyes. He was down in California playing for the Valencia Flyers and the Dub S, as you mentioned before. Um, it's a town probably like 40 minutes north of LA, something like that. And I was just talking to him that summer, and he's like, "Yeah, man, it's honestly, it's sweet. Like the hockey's actually pretty good, just because like there's pretty much no import rules. So there's so many Euros, and there's a lot of really skilled players. So there's a big margin between the good teams and the bad teams. Like
Yeah.
the good teams were actually really good, and then the bad teams were just brutal, right? But if you could find yourself on one of those at least like mid-pack to good teams, like it's some pretty solid hockey. Um, so I ended up going there because I was like, well, I'm 19 years old right now. I got 2 more years left of junior. Not going to go D1. I kind of came to terms with that. I was like, great, I'm not going to go Division 1. I may as well just go down to Southern California, play a couple of years, have a hell of a time, and
That's
still
like
probably end up going division. And yeah, and still probably end up going Division 3, right? So that was my mindset, and yeah, I was fully accepting of that, and exactly that basically happened. So it all kind of worked out in a perfectly imperfect way, right? Obviously, it would have been nice to go Division 1 or even U Sports or something like that, but um, I put myself in that position, and I had to carry through with the rest of my junior career.
Yeah, and like that, it's a rocky road. Like there's always uphills, downhills, and you're always gonna face adversity, like you did with being cut from getting cut to house, and then you just keep getting cut through with junior teams, junior leagues. So like, what do like those cuts like help you learn? Like, especially since you've been through it at the professional level, and like you've been at the top of like the profession or like the professional ranks. Like you're going playing pro, you're still like have that the adversity where you're getting cut, stuff like that. So like what do you learn from opportunity from like stuff like that that happens to you, and like what do you learn from those experiences?
That it's hardly ever personal, right? Unless you do something so bad that they have to release you, it's pretty much never personal, honestly. it's just it is what it is. It's the business. It's part of the game. But as long as like obviously I've been released, I was released this past season in Elmira after about a month and a half. Um, and just being confident in who you are and knowing what your ability is, I think that really helps you get through it. Like when I got released from Elmira, I was never I was never worried that I wasn't gonna get picked up because I knew someone was going to. Um, but yeah, just knowing within yourself and believing in your abilities and knowing what you can do, I think that plays a big part in helping you get through those tough times. Um, because yeah, obviously getting cut, it was kind of crazy because I had a really good start to the year, right? And then the wheels kind of fell off a little bit, and I could kind of see it coming, to be honest, just with the dynamic of the entire team and kind of the trends that were happening for the entire season, right? There's a lot of movement and a lot of turnover, so I knew that it was most likely going to happen, and it did end up happening. And honestly, looking back, having that in the back of your mind is not good at all,
Yeah.
right? When you're trying to play games, right? Because I was playing the last couple of weekends, I was playing really tense, really uptight. I wasn't really loose. I wasn't myself, and that cost me. But an interesting part of that is that when I did get released, it was like felt like the weight of the world was taken off my shoulders, to be honest. Um, yeah, I wasn't even that upset. It was relief getting released from there, to be honest. Just being in that environment, um, and just with how things were being ran, right? Uh, it was very, in my in my opinion, it was pretty toxic, right? Not just with myself and what things were happening. It's just
Yeah.
like the whole kind of like don't want to say the locker room because that implies players, but kind of with just how things were being ran, how strings were being pulled from the higher ups that were involved there.
Yeah. Like especially like when you have all that in your mind and like your game is loose and like you play super loose and everything like that. And then when you get tense and everything, like that's when your game tightens up, you're letting in shots that shouldn't go in. And
Yeah.
like you just get in your head and you just gotta get your mind out of that mindset. But it's hard when you're going through that.
Yeah, exactly. It's so easy to have things snowball in a bad direction too. It's very easy to have that happen.
Yeah, exactly. And like we talk about that a lot, like with the mindset, like what do you do to help like have that confident mindset like you do in games and really be able to compete at the best ability that you can?
Yeah, I mean, just knowing that throughout the course of an entire hockey season, right? What does the Fed play like 60 games or something like
56, yeah,
that,
something like that.
right? I don't know. Say you get 30 games, you'll probably because there's going to be a lot of ebbs and flows to a
Yeah.
season, right? So just learning how to manage and deal with, the highs and lows when they do happen for however long or short they do, right? I mean, a 30 game season, like if you have to get 30 starts, maybe maybe 10 of them will be like absolute grade A games where you just play out of your mind.
Yeah.
Maybe, right? For everyone, it'll be different, right? The numbers, it's not a fixed number, right? It's
Yeah.
probably just a ballpark. You might get 10 games that are just unreal, right? Maybe you'll get 15 games that are just like meh, B games, they're average. No, not great, not bad, didn't do anything crazy. And then maybe you'll get around five bad games where you get yanked or you just don't play good at all, right? So I guess looking at it like that, you probably have so the bulk of your games, about half of your games will be just mediocre and average. So you're just gonna know how to be able to win with your average games, right? And not letting it get to you if you're not having a great game by staying in it and giving your team a chance to win, right? You're not always gonna let in one goal and 47 shots, right? You need to know how to win games letting in 3 on 21.
Yeah, it's just
So
about
stuff
like
like that.
managing those games and being able to still be confident when you are having that average game, but also not kill yourself when you're having those games.
Yeah, exactly. Because when you get those games, you're not getting a whole lot of shots, but say the shots that you do get, they're pretty high, pretty good quality scoring chances. So you need to know how to handle that too, opposed to a game, like I said, you're getting 47 shots, you're just getting absolutely peppered, right?
Yeah.
So easy to get into it and stay into it, right? Everything's just flowing. You're not really thinking about anything, but game where you're not getting a whole lot of shots, it's really easy to let your mind wander.
Yeah, exactly. And like like this past season, like we would literally sit after games for what, an hour and just talk about like the game and how it went. Like we did when you played, and then when I went to the mill and played, we did the exact same thing. And like we
Yeah.
just talk about like the goals we gave up, like what we saw, some of the saves we had, and like stuff like that. So like take us through like how we did that and like what it really and how much it really benefited both of us to like actually look at it from like a different perspective.
Oh no, it was great. It was huge, and getting a bigger perspective on what actually happened and all that, and kind of breaking down each play bit by bit and understanding what happened and maybe what where the root of error was, or what led to the success of making a really good save or something like that. Because there's a reason why every goal goes in, and sometimes you can play a puck absolutely perfectly and it still ends up in the back of the net, right?
Yeah.
That's just what can you do? It goes off a team man's shin pad, it goes off someone's ass or something like that, right? You don't get too many of those, but you get them here and there.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, no, I think it's good to kind of categorize the goals after the game, not mid game. It's probably not the best thing to do, right? You just want to stay in the moment and just be loose. But after the game, kind of breaking it down and being like, okay, that goal, that goal I could have had, right? And that's the could have hads are kind of knowing yourself as a goaltender, right? And kind of being realistic.
Yeah.
And then another category is that like you should have had, right? And then another category could be like that can never fucking go in,
Yeah.
right? You can't allow yourself to have too many of those, right? I'd say your limit's probably like five in a season, something like that. Depends how many games you get. Um, but yeah, just realizing kind of like what kind of goals you're giving up also, and when you're giving them up too, right? You give up one of those goals where they can never go in the last 2 minutes of the game when it's tied to two. That's a tough one to
Yeah.
swallow, right? Not a
Yeah.
good look. And you could have had a great game before that. You could have made seven backdoor saves, but you let in that one, and that's the only thing that seems that people remember.
Yeah. And like those, like when you're just doing it like yourself, like sometimes you're not realistic as well. But like when you have that other perspective, like you really have to be real with yourself and the other person and really be like, yeah, that shouldn't have gone in. That I should have had like the little things like that, and like it really makes you see that different perspective and just be more real with yourself.
Yeah, exactly. Especially as being a goalie too, naturally, I think feel like they demand a lot out of themselves. Probably almost to an unrealistic standpoint
Yeah.
as well. So obviously you feel like you're just like, oh, I need to make every single save, but it's impossible, right? Like goals are going to go in, goals are going to happen as part of the game, right? And I guess just gaining that other perspective and knowing that like there's sometimes like nothing, like I said, nothing you can do about a particular player shot, right? One
Yeah.
that you might be hanging your head about, but it's like, hey, even if you could think like there's goals where even Carey Price or Vasilevsky you wouldn't even save, right? In any league, pretty much, right? Like there's been I guarantee you there's a decent amount of goals that have been scored in the Fed that no goalie in the world would save.
Yeah.
It's just what it is.
Yeah, just depends on what happened, like the situation. Some guys sometimes no goalie would be able to stop that, no matter if they're in the NHL or the Fed.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, so yeah, I think feel like us doing that this year was really beneficial.
Yeah.
Yourself and myself, and just evaluating not even just ourselves, but just goals that go in general around our league, the NHL, college, whatever it is, just kind of breaking down what happened.
Yeah, just like at practices too, and give up a muffin over the glove. And you're like, Jack. I'm like, Koz, shut the fuck up. That was a good time.
I know, and I knew you knew. I just wanted to say Jack because I wanted to get a rise out of you too. Because
Yeah,
I
it's a
knew that
straight muffin
you,
over the glove.
yeah, because I knew that you probably didn't know that I knew that. So I'm just like, all right, this is a perfect chance. So I was like, Jack,
I
and you're
said,
just like,
Koz,
the fuck,
shut the
I
fuck
know.
up.
And then the players in the corner were just dying.
The boys loved when that happened, when we just go at it for no reason.
I know, or a rebound after practice. That was really fun.
You played rebound the first couple games, and then after you just wanted to sit in your spot and try to score.
Just rip back doors.
Yeah, that's why you want to be a player. You don't want to be a goalie.
Yeah, that's the player in me. I need to get it out somehow.
Yeah, and
Like,
then you'd score, you'd give it to me, and then I'd make a save on you, and I'd give it to you. All the boys love that.
I know, it's such a good time. Honestly, I loved it.
Should have mic'd us up between practices.
I know, eh?
That would have been a good time. But so before we get back to your pro career, I want to talk about college a little bit here. So you committed to New England College after your last year in the Dub S. So like what was it like, or what was the process like to commit there, and like why did you choose that school over any other school?
Honestly, the process was pretty simple. So it wasn't even actually after that year. It was during Christmas, during the one showcase of the year in Vegas. So that was kind of
Vegas.
yeah, so that was yeah, it's unreal. But that was kind of like my make it or break it, honestly, because other than that, there's pretty much no scouting. Like, yeah, I'd say there's basically no scouting done throughout the season, right?
Yeah.
It's on all the way on the West Coast. So many schools, all the teams, all the coaches, all the scouts are on the East Coast, right?
Yeah.
So, and they pretty much they don't go out west all too often, right? Because there's also it's so talent dense on the East Coast too. There's so many different programs and junior teams that you can scout for. Um, but yeah, obviously Vegas is a pretty attractive place to go. So getting coaches and scouts out there probably isn't
They
too
can
much
they
of
can
an issue.
gamble a little bit, like no big deal.
Yeah, exactly. Just have a good time with your colleagues. Why not? I do the same thing, honestly. It's a great incentive to go there. But yeah, no, but in terms of from a player's perspective, right? If you're an age out and you're not committed to yet, that Vegas showcase is huge, huge. That's pretty much unless you're making videos and sending them out to all these different kinds of schools and all that, that's pretty much the only college exposure you're going to get throughout the year, at least in the Dub S when you're playing in California all the way on the West Coast.
Yeah.
Because throughout my 2 years there, that was the only time I got any exposure to colleges was during that Vegas showcase. Um, so yeah, obviously went up to Vegas for the showcase. I ended up having a pretty good few games there, and then the graduate assistant Clayton Jardine was there, and he talked to myself, Matt Reyes too, as well, actually, and my other really good buddy Nikita Pinchasov, and he just talked to us there. We liked what we heard, and at the time, I was so hell bent on playing hockey and trying to make a legitimate career out of it. So that seemed like, and it was Division 3, of course, so that seemed like it made the most sense. I did a little bit of homework on it and saw their track record. And the season prior to that, they moved a goalie onto the coast. So I saw that, and I'm just like, well, that's a no-brainer for me. I'm just gonna go. I didn't even go for a visit or anything like that. My first time seeing the campus was in August when I stepped foot there for freshman orientation or whatever it was. So yeah, so that just kind of I guess goes to show you that how hockey is pretty much the primary reason for going there. And then one thing as well, when we first got there, you're doing all the activities. It's a really good time, meeting a bunch of different guys, some of the returning players, obviously a lot of freshmen. And I wasn't aware of this at the time, but that NEC just over recruits, right? They bring in so many guys.
Yeah.
And I mean, my freshman year, but basically, if you make the team of your freshman year, you're pretty much good for the rest of your time there, right? Unless
Yeah.
you fuck up majorly and or just don't train or just don't do anything, right? So you make the team your freshman year, basically set. Um, so yeah, I went there and there was like 12 goalies trying out. And
Wow.
I was under the impression that, yeah, I was under the impression at first when I was talking to Clayton and like over the summer that, there's maybe going to be like me, obviously the two returning goalies from last year, and like maybe one or two
Yeah.
other freshmen. So I was thinking there's going to be like 4 or 5 goalies in total. Like, all right, whatever, like no problem. It is what it is. That's just college hockey. But I'm on campus and just meeting all these different people, and and I start meeting a lot of goalies, and I'm just like, what is going on here? Like, what is this? Um, but I guess the coach Tom Carroll, he I guess he was following me for the last half of my last age out season in juniors. Guess he liked what he saw, and he always assured me that like you're fine, like just play your game,
Yeah.
you'll be all right. And at the time, there was only like one spot really, because you dress three goalies in college, and I guess there's pretty much basically like three roster spots, but then they might have a few lingering around to practice, but
Yeah.
it's pretty much like if you're not on that top three, it's not easy to climb your way to the top, right, and actually get games. So he always said that to me like ever since I got there in August, and kind of just kept reiterating it to me throughout like September and like tryouts and all that. But obviously, a lot of people lie in the hockey world, right? So you can't really trust anyone. I was pretty skeptical when he was saying that because at the time I was like, why is he showing so much favoritism to me? Not really favoritism. You could maybe call it favoritism, but a little bias.
Yeah.
Um, and then I ended up getting hurt right before tryouts because I was on the ice with a few of my other fellow freshman classmates and a few of the returners, and we were playing rebound and just shot a rebound, goes to a guy, he passes it back door. I try to push across, and obviously I'm out. I'm stretched out like to the max, and then I feel like a kind of a pop, like kind of in my hamstring slash groin area,
Yeah.
and it's bad. Like it was really bad. Like I I couldn't even like put any weight on it after, and that was like yeah, that had to have been like 2 days before tryouts, and I was just like holy shit, like what's gonna happen now? Like am I just gonna get cut? Because he very well could have easily done that, right?
Yeah.
It sucks and it's not fair, but that's you see that all the time. Guys get hurt and they just get cut, right? Because teams don't want to deal with that. And but anyways, he lets me rehab it. He lets me take my time. I think it was like I was out for like 3 weeks, so I was off the ice, and then so yeah, pretty much for like all the uh all the scrimmages that we did, I would participate. I like hardly participated in any of the functions, right? Obviously, because I couldn't. And then we had an exhibition game against Plymouth State. It was like a Tuesday because all non-conference games are on Tuesdays generally, at least for our conference. And I was like, I got pretty much cleared a couple, probably 4 or 5 days before that game. And so I knew there was a very good chance that I was going to play at least a bit of that game, and that was kind of going to be like my tryout.
Yeah.
Um, so we played on a Tuesday, and like on a Saturday night, we went out, and I just got absolutely obliterated.
Just got shittered.
Oh yeah, like I got crossed, and it was bad. Like I woke up the next day, and I think for the entire next day I was still like under the influence. And then yeah, that was a Sunday, and then like Monday I was still a little woozy, and we played on Tuesday, and then I get told we're going up. It was an away game too, so we went up to Plymouth State, and then I'm told like I, I we dressed five goalies that game too. It's pretty nuts. So during warmups, getting shots was it's pretty hard to come by. But yeah, we dressed five goalies. Anthony Puplo, starting goalie, he played. I think he played. I think he played the first period. Yeah, he played the first period. Right, we go back into the locker room for the intermission. Coach goes by me, he just says, "You're going in for the second." I'm just like, "No way!" I'm like, "Shut up!" And everything just happened so fast. But to this day, it's probably one of the best periods of hockey I've played in my life. Um, Ironically enough, it was just a few days after I actually just abused the body. Um,
You always
but
talk about using the body.
yeah, I think we were up like 1-0 or something like that. I thought, yeah, that second period I played really good. I got, I think probably like 20 shots and like breakaways, 2-on-1s, backdoors. Like it was just meant to be.
Yeah.
So I ended up just played out of my mind. And then obviously solidified my spot on the team after that. Um, and then yeah, I ended up getting 4 games, played in 4 games that year, got 3 starts. I think my first, I think my first two, yeah, my first 2 starts, I'm pretty sure I got shutouts actually.
Yeah, your numbers are pretty nasty that year.
Yeah, the first 2 games I got shutouts. Um, they were non-conference games. They were against like Anna Maria and Salem. So they weren't necessarily the best teams, but I mean, 2 shutouts, that was pretty cool. And then my third start was against I think Framingham State University, and we won like 6-1 or something like that. So I gave up a goal.
A goal in 3 games, no big deal.
Yeah, so that was pretty cool. And then yeah, sophomore year was it was all right. I ended up only getting 1 start that year actually. Ended up getting into 2 games. I went in relief 1 game against Norwich, which is a pretty sweet atmosphere. I don't know if you've seen any pictures or videos of Norwich
I'm not.
University, but that place on a Friday night, that place is juiced. Like it is buzzing, man. It's probably one of the best setups in D3 hockey for sure. And they're a wagon of a program too. They're really good. So obviously we were getting thumped 1 game, went in for probably like I think it was like 15 minutes of third period. So it was a considerable amount of ice time.
Yeah.
Then a goal, but no, that was a really cool experience. And then I think I got my next game was in like January, February, and this game was in like November. But yeah, and then I think that's the year. Is that the year that COVID happened? Sophomore year?
Yeah, or June.
Yeah, 1920 was
Yeah,
that was
1920.
that's when COVID hit.
Yeah.
So yeah, we just got knocked out of the playoffs, I think by Hobart, and they're nasty. So we got knocked out of the playoffs, and then COVID hit, and that shut just everything down, as you remember.
Yeah.
And then so then after that year, Puplo graduated, and then obviously naturally myself and then my goalie partner Tormy, who was also going to his junior year, right? He came in as a freshman with me. It was kind of just us back and forth for the next 3 years, really. Like we split games for our junior year. We only played 10 games in total, so we got like 5 games each. It was all right. And then senior year, same ordeal, honestly. And we basically split games, except however I missed like 2 or 3 because I got COVID in like December, which really sucked. It was right before the break too, so
Oh,
I think I got COVID probably like December 5th or something like that, right? And I think our last game was maybe like the 16th,
yeah.
right? So
Pretty
wasn't
close
it?
again.
Yeah, I wasn't eligible to play that, and then we came back on like December like 27th or something. So it was almost like a month off the ice mid-season too. So that sucked. But despite that, I ended up having a really good senior year for the most part. And that's when I kind of came to the realization I'm like, damn, like it's my last year now. I should actually try to do something with this, like try to go play professionally after. So finished that year out, tried reaching out to pretty much every SP team, and the only bite I got was from Macon, but the coach there said we'd love for you to come down right now, but we just don't have any visas left over, obviously because I'm Canadian, right? So they'd have to
Yeah.
figure that out. So he said, look, we can't do it this year, but next year I'm definitely interested in having you come out to camp, competing for a spot. So I said, yeah, sure. That sounds great. We can do that. Signed in the summer, and then like 2 days after I signed, he gets canned. And I was just like, no way, like, shut the fuck up. And so obviously myself, along with I would imagine a lot of other players that were signed and returning guys are probably wondering like, what the hell's going on now?
Yeah.
And so, and I was no different. I was like, what the fuck is gonna happen now? So then, and at this point I was in Jersey training with my really good buddy. And then I went back home like early September, just go back for a few weeks. And then it's like mid-September and they still haven't announced a new coach. And camp is supposed to be in like 2 or 3 weeks. So I'm just
Yeah.
like, what's going on? Like, am I still going or am I not going? Like, do they want me to go? Do they not want me to go? And then finally I wake up one morning and I see that they hired Nick Nieder as a coach. I'm like, all right, well, we need to have a
Fellow
conversation.
goalie.
Huh? Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And so I'm like, all right. Anyway, so he probably doesn't reach out to me for like a week. And I'm just like, okay, like I could kind of see the writing on the wall. And he finally reaches out to me. And yeah, he basically just says he pretty much has his guys and it'd be best if I go back to school for another year. So then I have to, and mind you, this is like probably around September 15th-ish or so, right? So my school has already been, they've been buzzing now for like 3 weeks. Like they're 3 weeks into classes and like captain's practice and all that. So I'm like, shit. So I'm basically just scrambling to apply to get into grad school there. Anyways, it all happens. I obviously get it and then go back there for my 5th year. All around, it wasn't very good. It's a really small town in general. It's kind of depressing to be there. It's one of those things where like you get there and for the first like day or two, it's awesome to see the boys again and see how they're doing and all that. But then after that, you get used to like your schedule and your routine, and it's like, man, this place sucks. There's nothing to do here. It is such a small town. Um, and yeah, and I think maybe mentally I was still really kind of like coping with like not at least not going to a training camp in the SU because my mind from when my season ended in March at school to like August was I'm gonna go to Macon and I'm gonna make that team.
Yeah.
Right. And then to have things fall through like they did and unfold like that, it was a tough it sucked. It really did. Um so yeah, I went back to school, didn't have a great year. Man, poor me, my partner, he had a hell of a fucking season. He outplayed the shit out of me. So yeah, I know it was good for him. He just flat out played unreal, just way
Yeah.
better. And yeah, and it just didn't go my way that year. What can you do?
Yeah. Shit happens and you just gotta bounce back and just do whatever. You went into your grad year and then you ended up getting a shot professionally the right after that season ended. It's like what was it like to like what was that year like towards the end of that year? Were you like talking to teams or like how'd that go before you ended up going to Delaware in the Fed?
Yeah, so honestly, again, it was kind of similar to my senior year in a sense of I was just reaching out to whoever, wherever, whenever I could, just to get a shot somewhere. I didn't care where. Didn't matter to me, Fed, SP. I just wanted to go somewhere and play, get my foot in the door. And yeah, I think I reached out to like at least majority of teams in the Fed, a number of the teams in the SP, and obviously not coming off a great year, I wasn't surprised that I didn't get any interest from the SP, right? Especially being a Canadian too.
Yeah.
But I figured I may as well just give it a shot. But realistically, I knew is if I wanted to go play somewhere, it was going to be Fed. And then I'm reaching out to a lot of teams in the Fed. Some of them get back to me and just say like, "Hey, we're full right now," or whatever their reasons are. And then I reached out to Delaware and they replied pretty pretty fast. And yeah, Luke called me and he just said, "Yeah, like you want to come down here?" I'm like, "Yeah, sure." And then, I see their record and I'm just like, "Holy Jesus, what I got myself into." Um, but yeah, at that point, like, what can you do when you don't have any more options, right? Only
Yeah.
thing you can do is just take it and try to make the best of it. Just take it and run, honestly, which is I think I I think I did a pretty decent job of that. Um, yeah, there's a few growing pains there. But overall, it was I love playing in Delaware. It was awesome. Community's great, nice little town. The fans are great too, so supportive as well. They're there every single game, before, during, and after. Talk to the guys and all that, and the support there is second to none.
Yeah. And like you even have had fans come down this year when you're in Watertown to from Delaware. So that was pretty cool to see and
Yeah, exactly.
experience like how good of a fan base Delaware is because like you hear all the time that the fan base was sick and like there'd be lines out the door to meet you guys after the game. So like that must have been pretty cool for your first pro experience.
No, yeah, like, it was unreal, really. I mean, yeah, you hit it head on. Like there's lines just out the door every single game. It didn't matter what our record was. It didn't matter. If we lost 8-0 the night before,
Yeah.
they're still gonna all come back and line up, right?
Yeah.
It's like a communal thing, right? It's just gives them a sense of community, gives them a reason to come together, and it's great. And it's really unfortunate that they had to officially announce that they ceased operations not too long ago. So my heart goes out to the people of Delaware, and I hope one day they can get their team back.
Yeah, for sure. Hopefully, because it'll grow the league again, and Delaware was such a cool place to play. I've heard. So like, I hope they are back eventually. That would be cool.
Yeah, no, I really hope they are too, because it's almost like a hidden gem. Honestly, I really like it. There's some nice beaches around there too. Obviously, during when the weather's nice, it's
Do
obviously
you
a
know
hot.
too?
Yeah, yeah, it's basically a Chino connected to the ring too. So I don't know if that depends how you look at it. It could be good or bad.
Yeah, but that year, like when you did come in, like obviously Delaware was struggling a little bit, but you came in there and held your own in your first pro experience. Like what did you really have to learn about the pro game and about your game as well to help Delaware get some wins when you did come in?
I think I realized that I had to be happy, honestly, if I wanted to give my team the best shot of winning. Um, I think something that plagued my game up at school was a lot of the times I wasn't happy at all. Um, and there are some dark times there, as I mentioned before. It's a really small town, and it quite literally can get very depressing, especially when, say, if you're not playing well and you're in the middle of nowhere with like nothing to do, that can be really tough mentally. And I kind of went through phases of that, and it wasn't easy at all. Um, but I went down to Delaware, and I think part of what helped me play well is just getting out of Henniker, really, and just getting a change of scenery, just brand new, fresh start. Um, yeah, I didn't carry any kind of residual emotions that were negative from like school or anything that
Yeah.
happened the season prior, right? Because that senior year I didn't play well, so I went down to Delaware, and I kind of just was just like, hey, all right, like fresh start, just give it everything you have, and whatever happens, happens.
Yeah, that's cool that you got to experience and like you never know when a change of scenery would be good for you. And once you have that enjoyment and everything, you're having fun, like you said, especially if you're playing goalie and playing hockey, like if you're having fun, like that's when you perform your best.
Yeah, and one of the really cool thing too is right, obviously playing juniors and going to college, like they don't pay you, obviously, right?
Yeah.
You go there and like they start dishing you like a little bit of money. It's kind of cool, right?
Yeah.
Right, because you never experienced it before. Like I played my entire life, like I played like 16 years of hockey without getting paid, and just like getting handed a little bit of cash here and there it was pretty nice, right?
Yeah, it's not bad at all.
Yeah, especially like playing like minor hockey and like juniors too, where like at least some junior leagues where like you have to pay to play,
Yeah.
right? Like not only like do you not have to pay, but you're getting dished a little bit of money here and there, and a couple of Chick-fil-A coupons, McDonald's coupons, treat the body right. It's pretty cool too.
Always got to treat the body right. You can't abuse the body.
Yeah, you always got to make sure to get your Chick-fil-A and McDonald's coupons. But yeah, no, Delaware actually paid us in they wouldn't like pay us in coupons, like our salary was our salary, right? But on top
Yeah.
of that, they always give us like a few Chick-fil-A and McDonald's coupons every week. So that was kind of like a nice little added
Yeah.
bonus.
That's pretty sick. Can't complain about that.
Yeah, funny story about Delaware too, actually. I had like a broken stick, and obviously knowing how loyal and crazy the fans are there, right? I wanted to auction off one of my sticks there, or like give to the team to, so they could auction it off
Yeah.
to someone. And I was talking to the coach, and I was like, "Hey, Lou, like I got this broken stick. Like, you think I can give it to you guys for, I don't know, like a little like bit of a bonus or a percentage of it or whatever, right? Because when you're playing in the Fed, right, every dollar counts."
Yeah.
And he's like, "No, I don't know if we can buy it off you." And I'm just like, "Okay, like you can't or you won't." But I just didn't fight him on that. And I'm like, "All right, whatever, Lou. I'll give you the stick and just give me like 10 Chick-fil-A coupons." He's like, "Oh yeah, well, we can do that."
Goes from money to coupons. Yep, we can do that.
Yeah, I
right then and
know.
there.
I know. Yeah. So that's kind of funny little side story there with that.
Yeah, but hey, you're not complaining. Like we did in Watertown. Chick-fil-A was one of our five restaurants that we'd go to.
Yeah, I know. The discount was pretty nice too.
Oh yeah, can't complain about that. But talking about like Watertown your first year and your like first official pro season, like over like obviously you're going through ups and downs. Like you got released from Elmira, like you said, and then you went to Blue Ridge, got traded from Blue Ridge to Watertown. So like what was your first year of the full professional hockey season like for you?
It really made me understand kind of the ins and outs and the nuances of what pro hockey's like.
Yeah.
Um, and like I said before, it's hardly ever personal. And there's a lot of the times there's no rhyme or reason as to why things happen.
Yeah.
There's no rhyme or reason sometimes as to why someone gets called up or sent down, or as to why someone gets traded or cut or anything like that, right? Everything's everything. There's so many moving parts at all times. Like every single day, there's, as you know, there's multiple transactions going on. So there's always something happening, right?
Yeah.
There's always someone that, has to cut down on a spot or needs to fill in a spot. Like there's something always happening, right? And a lot of it's timing, a lot of it's timing too, right? So there could be times where, a team's just strapped with players. They just have too many, right? They have to get rid of some. You don't know if like you might just get all of a sudden get two or three guys that are sent down from the Esper, who knows, even the coast, right?
Yeah.
Or one of your guys might get called up like you saw with Tate Leeson this year up to the coast, like the day of or something, right? So
Yeah.
everything's always changing, and just controlling what you can control is really important. It was just going out there and just giving it your all and playing your best every time you step on the ice.
Yeah, so that's a huge thing to learn, especially when you have all those moving parts and everything. You could only like you have no control over half of the stuff that goes on, so you just got to control everything that you can that's in your control, and you just overall gotta have fun. And like you seem like you're thriving here in Watertown. So like, what was it like to play in Watertown?
It was awesome. I loved it, especially just having the, like we said, the Chick-fil-A nearby. But no, from the moment I walked in the dressing room, like met all the guys, it was I've truly never been in a locker room like that. Um, just the dynamic of it and the way all the guys gelled with each other was unreal, right? Um, there weren't like any cliques. All the guys were super nice, super welcoming to me, and a lot of characters too. But we always found a way to have a good time. So I think that was awesome.
Yeah, I love this team, and like that room is so much fun. Like any like you like we all lived in like you lived in a different apartment from me, and like some of the other guys lived in a different apartment, but like we'd all get together and have a good time, and there's
Yeah,
no cliques or anything like that. And like the boys are just all having a good time. The boys were real it was a really special group, that's for sure.
yeah, exactly. It was, yeah, probably the most fun I've had playing hockey in a while, to be honest.
Yeah. What were some of your favorite parts about Watertown?
Well, Watertown, honestly, the fan base was pretty awesome too.
Yeah.
Um, when say if we're playing bingo on a Friday night in Watertown, or like playing bingo like during the playoffs, like the fans were awesome, obviously, like, and it's kind of cool, it's a small town, but it's not too small, right?
Yeah.
Like you'll get maybe recognized here and there, or like recognized at Tim Hortons with what Leanne making our coffees, just
Yeah.
because she sees us like almost every day
Oh, it
there.
knows our orders
She
now.
knows our orders. So like little things like that make a
Yeah.
place really special to play, right? Just walking in and having your coffee already freshly brewed for you was pretty. It's seemingly small, but those are the things that
Yeah.
add up and really make a place really special.
Yeah, that's for sure. And like your French vanilla cream cold brew, whatever or whatever it was, like that was go to. Like that was ready right away. Like my Oreo cappuccino. Like
Yeah.
they had us buzzing.
Sometimes on the house too, which was nice.
Yeah, not bad of a gig at all. But you had a a really good, like obviously you played well throughout the season, but you had that really good 3-3 in bingo. Like I think we had what, one game in bingo and two at home, or two in
Like,
bingo, one at home.
yeah, one game in bingo and then two at home. Huge
Yeah.
weekend.
What was that weekend like for you? Because you usually don't see a goalie go 3-3.
Yeah, that was oh God, that was one of the crazier weekends of my hockey career. I don't think I'd ever gone 3-3 in my entire life.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know about that. I'd have to go look at my game logs and see if that's ever happened before. I don't think it has. But yeah, everything just kind of happened so fast, in a sense of like I didn't really have time to like really stop and really think about what was happening, right? So,
Yeah.
I went the first game against Bingo in Bingo, played pretty good, but we ended up losing. Um, Faced like almost 70 shots, as you remember that. So my body was already taxed, and this was around the time where Bush was also dealing with his injury as well, right?
Yeah.
Um, so then yeah, I wasn't quite clear on like what his condition was or what his status is. And then I wake up the next morning, right? Saturday morning, Beaker calls me like pretty early. He's like, "How you feeling?" And I'm just like, "Pretty tired." And he's like, "Oh, you're going again tonight. You can repeat your performance from last night and get us a win." And I'm just like, "Thanks, Beaks. It's really gonna help me do that."
There we go, Beaks.
But yeah, obviously we play that Saturday night. Played really well again. Got the win. Obviously, it was a great game. And then I wake up Sunday morning and the same thing again. How you feeling? I'm tired because I think I faced like 50 shots that game too. He's like, "Well, you're gonna go again. I'll bring you some electrolytes to the rink tonight." And
Of
I'm
course.
like, "All right, I guess so." But yeah, looking back on it, that was a huge test mentally, right?
Yeah.
Because going back to back to back, if you play well, it's very easy to kind of become complacent and want to kind of enjoy that great game.
Yeah.
A lot of the times, like you play a great game and it kind of trickles and bleeds into the next day of kind of like just enjoying it and being happy and proud of yourself. But I couldn't do that obviously. Like first game, had to just redial it in the next night because I'm just like, all right, like yeah, may have played well, but we didn't get the win. We need to go out Saturday night and I need to redial it and give the team another good chance to win. Did that, and this kind of the same thing ensued the next day, where just gotta just block everything out and just go there and just try to play your best again, right? Because reality is that nobody cares what happened in the past, and you got a whole team, you got teammates, management, and entire organization relying on you to get the job done, right? You have no time to kind of relax and sit back and you know enjoy thinking about the game that you played the night before, 2 nights before, or whatever.
Yeah, I think I remember that, and like we had that talk where it's like you wanna you wanna think about like the game you played before, but like it's so hard going having or winning back to back nights, like you said. And like I think it was like you lose one game, you win the next, like you're still thinking about that win the following night, but it's like you really have to shut that down, like that game's over, and then
Yeah,
refocus on that next game. Because if you're thinking about it, like you're getting complacent, like you said, like that's when your performance isn't going to be where it should be.
right, exactly, and just yeah, exactly that. What was I gonna say? I lost my train of thought. That'll come back to me. But yeah, no, that was obviously that was a crazy weekend. Um,
Yeah.
but yeah, huge weekend for us too, and standings wise as well. But yeah, and I think I remember I told you like, and then Sunday night or like the next night before practice, like I was just laying in bed, and I guess I was just severely dehydrated because I think that weekend I soaked like 160 shots, just
Yeah.
something stupid, and I was just laying in bed, and I'm just looking up at the ceiling, and it just starts moving, and I'm like, holy shit, what's going on? And I'm just so dizzy and I'm just so unbalanced, and I step up and like the entire room, like the walls, the TV, everything, like the ceiling is just kind of just like just moving like kind of in a circular motion. I'm just like, holy shit, and like I almost stumble and like trip and like fall over.
Yeah.
And I honestly thought like my body was just like shutting down, and I thought like, am I dying right now? But yeah, it just turns out that I guess I was just severely dehydrated and very sleep deprived too, just because obviously like I don't sleep all too well after games, so that was definitely played a role, and I probably was probably just very dehydrated. And then I ended up sleeping I think like 12 hours that night or something like that.
Yeah.
Went to the rink in the morning, then went back home and slept for like 4 hours.
Yeah, I think I woke you up, or you woke up, and we are going Tim Hortons like 5 minutes later.
Yeah, like yeah, it was definitely one of the crazier things that's happened. But
I remember that morning, and you're like, yeah, I was so close to waking you up, and like you drive me to the hospital like right then and there. I was like, holy
yeah,
fuck, this guy was like feeling it.
I was super close to doing that, really close to doing that because I didn't know what the hell was going on.
That you're like, holy fuck, what's going on?
Yeah, like my vision started like getting a little distorted too, and yeah, just literally just felt like my body was just shutting down.
Yeah, that's not good, but you probably took some electrolytes from Beeks, and you're probably good to go after that.
Yeah, just a few electrolytes and then I'm fine.
Yeah, those were good times. But you always seem to have good times when we're playing bingo. You had the save of the year that didn't count, and then you had the 3-3. Like that, like there's always good times against when you're playing bingo, apparently.
Yeah, no, I guess that's just kind of how it happens. I guess maybe I just like maybe I get up a little bit when I play bingo because obviously they're really highly touted teams. So especially in their barn too, right? You got to be very mentally strong to withstand yourself and for a full 60 minutes there.
I want to jump into like the foundational stuff for a little bit here before we wrap things up here. Like we always talk about like the three foundations that separate like great goal or good average goaltenders from great goaltenders. So like what are your three like absolute foundation things that needs to be a successful goaltender?
Um, my top three would definitely be skating. You got to be a really good skater and be able to move around your crease like it's no one's business. Right? If you can't move around the crease, then you're going to get beat. You're not going to be able to move up. So I think being able to move around the crease is imperative to being a successful goalie. Number two, I'd say being able to read the play,
Yeah,
right? Um, and that can kind of go hand in hand in a sense with being able to move around the crease, right? Maybe maybe a goalie can't necessarily move around the crease that well, but if he has a very high hockey IQ and he can read the play and knows what's going to happen, then that allows him to maybe not have to be as quick as somebody else who maybe
yeah,
is quicker but can read the play as well, right? It's all about just knowing yourself and knowing your strengths and weaknesses and knowing what you have to work on. Um, and then the third and probably the most important component of that is your mental game. I'm a big believer that goaltending is 90% mental, 10% physical. Um, you take the physical ability of, say, an East Coast goalie and an NHL goalie, it's pretty much, for the most part, I'd say it's almost identical,
yeah,
right? You have an East Coast goalie on the ice with an NHL goalie on the ice, and you just see them go through movement patterns or take some shots. You're probably not going to be able to tell the difference between the two, right?
yeah,
It's when you get into a game and game like situations where you can really delve into it and extrapolate, you know, why this goalie is in the National Hockey League versus why this goalie is in the East Coast Hockey League, right?
yeah.
It's mental, it's being able to read the play and maturing and understanding the game.
Yeah, it's the small intangibles, the small details that really find a goaltender between the East Coast, the coast, and the NHL. It's literally all about those small details, and like even like Fed, SB, Coast, A, NHL, like it's literally as you go up, like the finer details and the smaller details add up. But like all these goalies really aren't that big of a difference, aren't that far off. It's just the small details as it comes.
It's the small details that add up that make
Yeah.
such a huge difference, right? And that ties into hockey IQ, like I said before. Say goalies that like kind of maybe like lower in NHL goalies versus the goalies at the very top. The difference between them and the top end goalies is so slim, it's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's such a slim margin there. Um, because the difference between making a save and not making a save is it's almost negligible, right?
Yeah.
So it's fractions and fraction of a second either being ahead of it or behind it,
Yeah.
right? And just being able to read the play, read the release, and beating that pass, beating that shot, or knowing what's going to happen next, right? Like you said before, there's almost it's a goalie in the East Coast League and a National League goalie doing movements around a crease pretty much more times than not identical. It's those very small details in that hockey IQ, and also that mental part of the game too, which is what makes the difference, right?
Yeah. Those
Those things you can't always necessarily physically see.
Yeah, but it all adds up with with those little details. Like you don't always have to see those fine details. It's literally the mental game, how they face adversity, how they prepare for the game, how they prepare for
Yep,
practices. Just the mentality is just different.
exactly.
Yeah, so
Yeah,
like the foundational skills that you believe to be a successful goaltender is skating, reading the play, and then just being able to have that mental game, that mental capacity to
that
go
mental.
be able to go up that next level.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah,
If
like
you
that. Go for it.
just gonna say if you can get good at all those three things, you have a
Yeah,
pretty good chance.
yeah, exactly. And like that's what we try to teach like our goalies when we're coaching in Watertown is the youth goalies is skating. Like we both ran sessions there, and our main focus was skating. Like
Yeah,
especially as younger goalies, like they don't really have that good foundation for skating. I've found so like just to dig that in because once you do that, that's when you're able to see a guy that's at here or up here.
yeah, exactly. Yeah, I know a lot of the kids really, in general, probably aren't big fans of skating, but it's what they need. It's kind of what I find this generation of
Yeah,
goaltenders is lacking. At least with the experience that I have coaching in Watertown now, and coaching here, running some privates and doing camps here in Vancouver. A common theme that I notice among goaltenders is the skating aspect. It's one of their big downfalls I find, and there's a lot of goalies where it's very apparent that they've neglected that area of the game, and it shows. It really does. It shows, and there's no hiding from it too, right?
yeah,
You're not a good skater. Scouts, players, coaches, people are going to be able to tell in 5 seconds that, like, damn, this obviously this kid can't skate, right?
yeah,
And but I think it's an easy fix in terms of like the formula of it and how to get better, right? It takes hard work, right? Like anything, if you want to get good at something, it takes hard work, but kind of the pathway to it is just it's pretty simple, right? It's like anything. Like you want to become better at skating, you got to practice skating,
do it.
right? You want to become a better guitarist, you got to practice guitar, right? It just comes to practice, right? So it just comes down to that and just how dedicated are you and how much effort do you want to put towards it.
Yeah, exactly. I had a parent yesterday when I was coaching was like, what does my kid need to work on? And like I think he's like 6, 7, 8 maybe. And I skated him for like 15 minutes and I was like, it's honestly skating at this point. Like can't like it need like his skating needs to be better. And like she's like, just bag skate him for like 30 minutes if you have to. Like because like I was like I generally like to with my older goalies, I like to hammer skating for 20, 25, 30 minutes in a session, depending on who it is. And like she's like, do that. Like so like skating
Mhm.
is that big foundational skill that you need to have.
Oh yeah, you gotta.
Yeah, exactly. But we have a few questions from some of the guys that I post on Instagram, so we'll
Yeah,
get that before we wrap things up. So first question is, do you miss playing for Watertown because we miss you?
Yeah, I do miss playing for Watertown. I sure do. I miss you guys too.
There you go. Tommy, we're not going to answer that because you know what question he was asking. Toivo Heinekainen, any stories from Delaware that sticks out to you slash you remember good?
Yeah, it's kind of ironic that Toivu asked that question. Uh, yeah, Toivu, I do remember a very particular story sticks out to me. Um, so I drove down to Delaware from school, and I was fortunate enough to have a car, right? So obviously the Euros, they would sometimes ask to borrow my car. And Toy would borrow my car from time to time. Like he was a pretty good driver, he's pretty
Yeah.
trustworthy. But anyways, he wanted to go to the gym one night. It was like the night before game too. And he's like, I want to go to the gym. I'm just like, you want to go to the gym like the night before game? But I didn't think too much of it. I was like, whatever. He has this thing, he has
Yeah.
a routine. Yeah, sure, you can take my car. And then obviously just like any other night, I went to the Chino, try to make a quick buck. And I remember I went to the casino with Charlie Bedard. Um, and I think at the time I was like down 50 or $100, which obviously if you know about the Fed or have played in the Fed, that's a considerable amount of money, right? And that so I wasn't in a great mood already. And then I get a nice phone call from Toyville, probably like 20 minutes after, 15, 20 minutes after he took off with the car. And he tells me that he hit a deer. And I'm already pissed that I'm already pissed that I'm down.
Yeah.
And he says I hit a deer. I was in my mind, I'm just like, there's no fucking way. Like, you did not just hit a deer. Like, did you? And he's just like, and in just the most serious tone, he's like, yes, I did. And I'm just like, holy shit, are you kidding me right now? And I'm just how bad is it? And so the deer actually ran into him. Like he said that he was driving and a couple of deer ran in the middle of the road. So he stopped. And then like a few seconds later, he just hears a thud on the side of the door. And it turns out that one of the deer just ran headfirst right into my passenger side rear doors, and it was mangled. He sent me a picture, and I'm just like, oh my god. And it's one of those situations. I didn't have insurance for that too. I had like the most minimal
Oh,
insurance, and I was like, it was just such a sticky situation too, because obviously we're not making millions of dollars
yeah.
playing in the and like it wasn't really his fault. It wasn't his fault really, but he was the one driving the cars. But yeah, I think we dealt with it in a pretty reasonable way. But yeah, that's definitely one story that sticks out. And also another story is I'll just kind of just go over this pretty quick because I think we're running short on time. But what the night that I drove to Delaware from New Hampshire, I drove there and I got there at like midnight or so, right? So kind of late. And the coach wasn't very clear on like kind of where the house was, like what to do. So I pulled up to the address that he gave me, and it looked like it was just like all dark inside. And I'm just like, all right, what the hell? Like, am I supposed to just like walk up to this house right now and like
Yeah.
just like walk in or like knock? I was like, what the heck is going on here? So I go to the front door, knock, nobody answers. Go to the back door, knock, nobody answers, and I'm banging pretty loud. But like at the same time, it feels so weird because I'm not 100% sure if this is the right house. So I'm like,
Yeah.
and like I was like, and this is America. I don't want someone to just come with a 12 gauge and just stick it in my face, right? So I was already pretty scared, just like
It's like
knocking
midnight
on
too.
the yeah, exactly. It's midnight, right? So I just knock on the doors of this random house. So then like nobody answers, but I can hear like people are inside. So I'm just like, hey, what the hell is going on? So I call the coach and I'm like, like, what's going on here? Like, what kind of show we running? And then he's just like, yeah, like that's the house. That should be it. And then I'm kind of just driving around the neighborhood and he like describes the house that I was banging on the door of like to a T. So like I'm like, okay, that's the house, but like why isn't anybody answering the door? And then probably like 10 minutes later, some guys like pull up and I'm like, hey, these guys are definitely on the team. And like I kind of drive like right next to them. I'm like, are you guys like, do you guys play for the Thunder? They're just like, yeah, like that's it. And then I'm like, all right, cool. Follow them, go to the house. They pull over in front of the house. I pull over right behind them, right, just parking on the street. They get out of the door, they get out of the car, and they don't say anything to me. Like I get out too, they just don't say anything to me. Like they just like don't even acknowledge me. I'm just
Yeah.
like, the fuck. And then they just both start walking into the house. I'm just like, right? Naturally, I just follow them, right? I'm like, all right, that's a pretty nice introduction. Thanks. And then they just open the door. I follow them. And then one of the guys, not gonna name who it was, one of the guys, he just says, your room's right there. Kind of like, sweet. Thanks, dude.
Sick.
And
Welcome to the
yeah, so like,
Fed.
yeah. And at that point, I'm like, not even like from like just like it was just from like a human being standpoint, like how do you I didn't I just it was just beyond me.
Yeah.
I was baffled, honestly. I just didn't understand like how can you lack like the common courtesy of just like saying like, hey, my name's so and so, nice to meet you, right?
Yeah.
It's a 5 second interaction that makes a world of difference.
Yeah.
But anyways, after that happened, like I was like, so I right off the bat, I just felt so uncomfortable. I'm just like, I literally texted my friend who lives an hour and a half away from their Jersey. And I was just like, this was like, it was like 12:30 at the time now. And I was like, hey man, like, are you home right now? Because I wanted to leave. And if he was awake, I would have left and gone to his house.
Yeah.
I'm not even kidding. I would have left and gone to his house and I would have gone to another team. Because at that point, I was kind of talking to Watertown too. And then I went to Delaware because things kind of fell through in Watertown. I wasn't really too sure why. But yeah, so then but I would have just gone to another team. If my friend It's crazy that if my friend was awake, then things would have probably turned out so differently than they did.
Yeah. Talk about like literal hours from like a whole different situation or
Oh,
scenario.
oh my God, I know. It was yeah, that was nuts, but I was that was a pretty that was definitely a questionable introductory to.
Memorable stories though.
Yeah, no, it sure was. Just kind of puts in perspective, I guess,
Yeah.
that yeah, I didn't know. It was just I've never experienced anything like that in my life. It was nuts,
Yeah. No.
especially in the hockey world where everyone's usually very gracious and very welcoming, well mannered, well spoken, that kind of thing. So that was kind of that was different.
It's a wake up call.
Yeah, I guess so.
Yeah, that's crazy. But the next one is what's your favorite game you've ever played?
Favorite game I've ever played. Well, I think we kind of talked about that. It wasn't one particular game. It was just kind of a string of games. But I guess
The 3-3?
that yeah, that 3-3. And the first game was honestly the first game was crazy. That might be one of my most favorite games, right? Because there's a bit of a backstory to that too. I'll kind of just sum it up quickly, but so it was the first game, the Friday night game was in Bingo, and like a couple weeks ago, that's when the infamous no goal was called, right? And
Yeah.
then that game, we ended up losing in a shootout. I flipped the net, whatever. And then so obviously that got the crowd going, and they kind of had their sights set on me from the early goings of that game on Friday that I went to. Right, just because everything like that happened, like with the
Yeah.
game and like the net and all that, and then we're there, of course, like a couple weeks later,
Yeah.
and then it was Cancer Awareness Night. Obviously, they were supporting a great cause, and before the or after the national anthem, they were going to do a nice ceremony of puck drop, and there's like a 12-year-old kid with like leukemia or something like that, if I recall correctly, and he happened to be a goaltender too, so at the end of the anthem, the announcer announces, "Say, could both goalies make their way down to the Zamboni doors for, this celebratory puck drop?" And so I just start skating down because I'm like, all right, like, yeah, I guess it's legit. And then someone on the bench of the Wolves told me to not go because he thought that they were like trying to get in our head, right? So
Yeah.
he's just like, oh no, no, he's like, fuck that. Stay in your net. Stay in your net. I'm like, all right, whatever. So then Leeser, he ends up just going and taking the puck drop. And it's only after the fact that like I stayed in my net and Leeser went there that the announcer announced that this is so and so, a 12-year-old like cancer patient with leukemia who's also a goaltender. Then when he announced that, I'm just like, no way. Like that's just the worst thing that like could have happened. And I'm like, of course he was a goalie, And I felt so bad too. But like, what could I do? Like the ceremony,
Yeah.
it was over, and like after that, obviously, understandably so, the crowd was just giving it to me. Um, so I'm like, oh my holy moly! And then yeah, obviously the game began and ended up losing like 5-2 with an empty netter. So I let in 4 goals, but I got like 66, 67 shots. So that'll probably go down as one of my more memorable games
For the wrong reasons
for the wrong reasons and the right
and the
reasons.
right reasons too.
Yeah,
Definitely a memorable weekend for you, that's for sure.
yeah, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. And then the last question is, what do you use for your hair product? Since your hair is always sticking up.
Yeah, it's a little long right now. What's going on? Yeah, it's way too long. I haven't gone and cut in like a
Yeah, come
month
on.
and a
You
half.
gotta cut it, buddy. Come on.
There's too much coaching and whatnot, and just but right now I'm rocking some Old Spice, some clay. Yeah, some clay from Old Spice. I actually haven't put
You
any
know,
into it. How impressive is that? Just the natural
it's
hold
it's
of it,
all natural.
all natural. I just need a bit of upkeep every couple of days, I guess. Just gotta, yeah, it's like muscle memory. It just knows what to do. I've
Yeah.
been doing this since I was like 10 years old, so
Yeah. So it's all muscle memory at this point.
it's so long right now though. It's insane. Just my
Best hair in the Fed.
yeah, I don't know about that. Dude, you got the best hair in the Fed.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not gonna say no. Of course it is. Got the flow going.
They got the flow, buddy.
Yeah, it'll be good to have the flow in the games next year.
Yeah, that's always really nice. I was actually always really jealous of that kind of hair that like curls at the back because I have like,
It's all natural.
yeah, I have like straight hair, which is like
Yeah.
pretty common. Like it's kind of like it's a probably like an Asian thing for the most part, where like the hair is just like just very straight. There's no natural curves whatsoever.
Like
Right.
you've seen my hair after the shower. Like it's completely the dit down and I don't do anything and it curls
I
like
know, no, I know, I know. I'm just saying, like
yeah.
I've always wanted hair like that. Like if I was able to grow it out and have it like curl, I
Yeah.
probably would too.
Yeah, it's sick. But Kaz, thank you again for coming on the show. I'm glad we're able to get this going and get you on the show. Like I appreciate your time and I can't wait to see what you do going forward.
Thanks, Jack. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on the show, buddy.